Professor Pandemic back again, mathematicians, to talk about estimating, sums, and differences. And again, estimating, another fancy way to say we're going to round some numbers. Sum meaning we could either add, or difference we can subtract. So again, either adding or subtracting with estimating. When it doesn't actually say to estimate to a certain place, we always assume that it wants us to round to the nearest whole number or to the ones place. So it doesn't actually say, always round to the ones place. That's the safest bet. So here we have 34 and 6800ths plus 17 and 4/10. So again, I look at the tenths place in each of these numbers for my rounding to the nearest whole number. This 6 tells me to round up, so I'm going to make the 34 into a 35. I bring down my adding sign. Then I have 17 and 4/10. The 4 tells me to keep the number the same. So I have 17, and then I just add my estimates up. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And our answer there is 52. If you don't want to do it in your head, you could also write it over here and do it vertically. In fact, I recommend you doing it vertically because it will make it maybe easier to solve the problem. Let's look at another estimating question. So for this problem, friends, we have 63 and 9/10 minus 17 and 3400ths. Again, there's no specific part telling us what to estimate, so we're going to estimate to the nearest whole number. 63 and 9/10, that's going to round to 64 because this 9 always tells us to round to the next number. Bring down the subtraction. Now we have 17 and 3400ths. We look at this 3. It tells us to keep that number the same. So we have 64 minus 17. This time we're subtracting. So I'm going to take my work over here to the side to make sure I'm doing it correctly. I need to borrow 110. So now I have 14 tens. 14 minus 7 is 7. 5 minus 1 is 4. So our estimate here is going to be 47. Let's do a couple more examples of this, and then we'll move on to something else. 8 and 356 minus 2 and 4/10. Quickly estimate to see if you can get the correct answer. Hopefully, friends, you ended up with an answer of 6 for this estimate. So, 8 and 3/10, when we estimate that, that goes down to 8. 2 and 4/10, it stays the same when we go to 2. 8 minus 2 is 6. Let's try another problem. We have 23 and 624 thousandths, adding 17 and 8500ths. Take a second and see if you can solve that problem on your own. Mathematicians, if you had the answer of 42, you would be correct. Because 23 and 624 thousandths, this 6 tells us to round up, which makes us 24. 17 and 8500ths, this 8 also tells us to round up, which is 18. And then we add our estimates because it's an adding. 24 plus 18, which is 42. Your teacher might do a couple more problems with this, but when we come back in our next problem, we're going to look at what happens if it says round to or estimate to a different place other than the ones place. So in this problem, mathematicians, it actually tells us specifically to round to a certain place. So you can't round to the ones place, you have to round to the tenths place. All that means, friends, is you do the exact same thing, only now instead of rounding to the ones, you round to the tenths place. So here, this 6 tells us to round up, so we have 45 and 3/10. So again, we're just a little more specific with our estimate. And here, this 4 tells us to keep it the same, so we have 18 and 3/10. So again, everything stays the same except now, instead of having a whole number, we have a decimal. Now we just have to go and add it up. We have 63 and 6/10 because we rounded to the nearest tenth. And hopefully a lot of times when you round to the nearest tenth, you're probably going to have a tenth as an answer. So that's another way to kind of have a hint of what you're looking for. Let's do another one of these problems. So in this problem, we're still rounding to the nearest tenth, only now we're subtracting. So we have 45 and 26 hundredths minus 17 and 48 hundredths. Take a second and solve that problem. Did you come up with 27 and 8 tenths for your answer, mathematicians? Because if you did, that was the correct answer. To quickly walk through, 46 and 26 hundredths, that rounds to 45 and 3 tenths. 17 and 48 hundredths rounds to 17 and 5 tenths. And when you do the subtraction, 27 and 8 tenths is what you come out for your answer. Your teacher may do a couple more examples of this with you as well, but the last thing we have to do is estimate in a cluster. And what that means is estimating more than two numbers at the same time. We'll bring you that in the next commercial break. When it says estimate a cluster, friends, all that means is there's more than two numbers and they just want you to estimate everything. So this is only going to be really for addition because you can only subtract two numbers at a time. So if you see estimate cluster, you're going to be adding multiple numbers. It also probably means you're going to be mostly estimating to the nearest whole number, again, unless it specifically tells you to estimate to the tenths place. So right here, 75 and 6 tenths, that's going to round us to 76. 25 and 34 hundredths, that 3 tells us to keep it at 25. And 9 and 3 tenths, that tells us right there to stay at 9. And again, now that there's a cluster, I definitely recommend doing this side work. It just makes it more helpful. And again, we usually add vertically anyway, so it's nicer to do than trying to add horizontally. 11 plus 9 is 20. 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 2 is 11. And our answer for this cluster would have been an estimate of 110. Let's do one more example of this before we let you do some more practice on your own. In this cluster, we have 4 different numbers that you have to estimate before you solve. Take a minute and see if you can get the super problem in today's video. Did you get 45, mathematicians? Because if you did, you are an estimating cluster champion. Let's go over it. So 4 and 6 tenths should have rounded to 5. 18 and 25 hundredths should have kept the same at 18. 3 and 4 tenths stay the same and stay at 3. And 18 and 97 hundredths, we round that up to 19. When I went over here to add, I added 5 plus 3 in my head and put the 8 there. But then I took 18, 19, and 8 and added them all together. And I ended up with 45. So, ladies and germs and creatures of all ages, this is how you estimate sums and differences. Your teacher might do some more problems with you in a small group or in a live lesson, but please use this video for extra help if you need it. As for me, I'm Professor Pandemic. Enjoy your estimating, and we'll see you at the next math lesson. Have a good day, friends.